So the beta for the 2.71 update just came out a few days ago, and I wanted to share some tips and tricks on Feca after testing the new spell kit. If you want to play more offense than defense in battle, always keep either teleglyph or reinforced protection in your spell bar. These are your only two spells to trigger glyphs during your own turn, so you don't want to be stuck without them. This means you should avoid picking Aegis and Feca Shield at the same time. Ataraxia and Backup are now variants of each other. Before, you had to choose between Ataraxia and Reinforced Protection, and between Backup and Truce. That was a really easy choice for both because Reinforced Protection was an awful spell, and because Truce was used only in very niche situations. But now, Truce and Reinforced Protection are way more useful than before, so you have to make the right choice according to the situation. You gotta pick between Truce and Bastion, and between Feca Shield and Reinforced Protection. As mono element, you can now play with 5 different elemental spells at the same time, which gives you one more spell than before. This is better for playing around start of turn glyphs, because it allows you to keep a good variety of spells while your glyph is on cooldown. Use your class passive to your advantage by studying the enemy's damaging elements. Since you can activate the passive using both start of turn glyphs and glyph auras, you always have a way to increase your resistances, so pick the one that matches the enemy's element. Another thing about the Feca passive is that sometimes you see builds that give resistances to every element except the one you're focusing on, and there's a perfect synergy with those types of builds and the Feca passive because you can use the glyph of your element to deal damage while at the same time filling the gap within your resistances. Barrier now summons the glyph as soon as you cast the spell, which means you can actually force your opponent to trigger the damage by pushing them into it before they can even play. This is huge at the moment during the beta, because you can make multiple targets take the damage at the same time. Feca's mobility is better than before, because we now have a spell to push ourselves back, and because even though a cooldown was added to Bevis, we can just use the lantern instead. Since every glyph aura can now be cast on a free cell to summon the lantern, they're useful to keep in your spell bar even when you're playing a different element, because you can use it every turn as a 6 range teleport using Excursion Glyph. The only glyph aura with less than 6 range is Refuge, previously Protective Glyph, but this one is good in its own way because on top of summoning the lantern, you can place a glyph that reduces damage sustained, which you can use to your advantage. For example, if you just want to get yourself out of melee without running too far away, this spell is perfect because you're doing 2 useful things at once, both unlocking and protecting yourself. Summoning your invulns allows you to give immunity in an area of effect, which is better than single target, but the risk of doing this is losing your invuln if the summon gets killed, and it has very few HP. Therefore, both options are nice to have, since there's pros and cons for each of them, so you have to think carefully about which one you want to use depending on the context. You could technically give Bastion to your summoned Barricade and vice versa to make sure it doesn't die, but then you put both invulns on cooldown at the same time. Truce applies the pacifist state to anyone who is present within the zone and goes away when walking out of it. It gives it to the Feca as well, so if you plan on doing damage, then do the damage first before casting Truce. Aegis can now do 2 different things. Either you use it as a sacrificing summon just like before, or you target an ally directly and then a zone will appear around them. Any ally receiving damage inside this zone will be sacrificed by the Feca himself, kind of like the sacrifice spells of Sacriers. The water path can now be played melee since they remove the minimum range conditions on every chance spell. So these are just a few things I've observed on the beta for now, and things can still change before the update comes out. There's also probably things I haven't discovered yet, so let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the new spell kit?